Now, he's going to be with us a little bit in the next hour, and then he's got to go. Dr. Stan Monteith of RadioLiberty.com has been fighting tyranny for over 40 years. 35 years he was an orthopedic surgeon in Santa Cruz. He led a delegation of physicians to the House Delegates of California Medical Association for 10 years. He's reached millions of people. He's a best-selling author. He wrote AIDS, the Unnecessary Epidemic, and documented that it was basically a bioweapon pointed at minorities. And he's an amazing individual. And he spoke, we ought to find that and play it tonight, intersperse it with this interview. He spoke a few years ago, and I spoke to a packed crowd in Santa Monica. That was another speech I gave. That was in Santa Cruz, there for the KSCO folks. And he doesn't like to talk about it, but I wondered why when I heard his local radio show, when I heard him a local affiliate, he's out in California, when I heard it here in Austin, why I wasn't hearing him on the air anymore. So I made some phone calls and learned that he has a very serious form of cancer. I know he's 80-plus years old, and you know, nobody lives forever, but I hope he can stay here a lot longer. This is a guy that's broadcast 6 hours a day on 4 different radio shows he would do to over 100 affiliates for decades. And when we talk about the icons like Ron Paul and so many others that have come before us, the Red Beckmans, the G. Edward Griffins, the Anthony Suttons, there have been so many. Dr. Stan Monteith is owed just an incredible debt. And that's why people tell me how great I am all day or what a wonderful job I've done. Again, he isn't here for credit. In fact, he doesn't want credit. He didn't want to talk about his illness. But I want everybody to pray for Dr. Stan, but also just be thankful for Dr. Stan Monteith, because so much of what we know today was because of him. And he has a book and film archive that he's offered for us to go into and copy. We haven't had the time or energy. We were out here interviewing him a few years ago. He had the flu and would go and lay down because we'd flown out there for about 30 minutes, go be sick in the bathroom, come out, do 30-minute interview, come back and do it again. That's the dedication of a doctor, a medical doctor, like Ron Paul, like Dr. Larry McDonald. So many of the great super patriots have been medical doctors, and we just are so thankful for Dr. Stan Monteith. And I know today before he came on, he said, I don't want to talk about me. He told the folks this morning, I don't want to talk about my illness. I want to come on and talk about what's happening in Iraq and what's happening here and about the big picture. But I talked to him before the break. I said, people care about you, and we need to talk about it and discuss it. So Dr. Stan Monteith, thank you so much for coming on with us, my friend. And we just are really thankful for all you've done. How many years have you been fighting the New World Order? I know it's over 40, isn't it?
Started in 1962, so it's been 52 years. 52,
okay. I was going off an old bio, so 52. Tell folks a little bit about yourself, and then tell folks about what you're going through right now.
Well, basically, as I said, I'm a retired orthopedic surgeon. I do 5 hours of talk radio 5 days a week, and what a privilege it is to get the information out. Now, as far as my illness is concerned, I have a T-cell lymphoma, which, of course, I had no idea until suddenly the lymph nodes came up all over. But fortunately, why we have here in Santa Cruz some excellent conventional doctors tied into Stanford, and they started me on chemotherapy, and all the lymph nodes are gone. Now, I also certainly am taking the finest alternative medicine, and we have several friends I've known for many years. One of them, Dr. Russell Blaylock. I think he's the finest alternative medical specialist in the country, and he's outlined a program for me of alternative treatments. And the amazing thing is about the alternative treatments is they potentiate the action of the chemotherapy. The chemotherapy just kills every cell, kills every new cell that comes up, all the normal T cells, all the cells in your bone marrow, they kill everything. And basically, that is bad, and they kill everything that is good. Well, basically, the alternative medicines potentiate the action of the chemotherapy in killing the bad things, but actually protect the good cells. So this is what we're doing. And all in all, I feel pretty good. I feel very, very tired, but my mind is working. And we have 6 treatments. We've actually had 4 of them now. And I years, why, they will be here. I really sort of want to see what's happening because we are entering a very, very difficult time, and I'm really very, very concerned about what's going on over there in the Middle East. And let me just comment on that basically what we're seeing in the Middle East today, with this war in Iraq, is exactly what we saw during the Second World War. What am I talking about? Well, basically, we are funding the Shia Muslims in Iraq. We are funding the Sunni Muslims in Iraq. We're funding both sides. And it really doesn't make sense unless you understand World War II. And this is one of my recent studies. And the most frightening thing is the realization that we funded the Nazis all during World War II.
Just like Anthony Sutton in the congressional hearings confirmed what McCarthy has said, the Soviets were funded all along by the robber barons, even during the Vietnam War. That's all declassified now. Our own government put Mao Zedong in to kill 80+ million of his own people. It's the globalists above the nations playing them off against each other.
Absolutely. We funded both sides during the Vietnam War. But more than that, I mean, we funded the Nazis during the Second World War, and basically the information is there. The books have been written by responsible people. Anthony Sutton wrote about this, and at the time it just didn't make any sense. But now there's a fellow named John Loftus who's written a book called America's Nazi Secrets, and John has had a security clearance 3 levels above top secret.
That's right. He was at the highest levels of the Justice Department and in national security with the FBI. We've had him on the show, and he's confirmed that it wasn't just a rat line, that the Nazis were fully in a double deal with the West. Well, you know about the McCormick-Dickstein committees. Sure. They tried to overthrow the U.S. in the mid-30s, but Smedley Butler blew the whistle on them. We almost went under not even a Nazi regime, but under a eugenics regime funded by the globalists, but then the globalists double-crossed the Nazis themselves. That's why Hitler was on the cover of Time magazine twice as Man of the Year as a great guy.
Well, you know, one of the most incredible stories is of the escape of Adolf Hitler. Now, I would say that there's not one person in 1,000 in America who believes that Adolf Hitler didn't die in the bunker there in Berlin. I mean, we've been told that for years, and yet, of course, I've actually talked to at least 3 men who've been to South America who talked to the people who took care of Adolf Hitler till he died in 1965. Adolf Hitler was allowed to escape to South America. He and Eva lived there comfortably, for a number of years, for almost 20 years after the war ended. And the fact that they've been able to conceal that information from the American people is simply a reflection of the degree of control that exists over almost every means of dissemination of information in the United States, except for alternative media, which is what you do so well. So, I mean, this is the most amazing story. We have actually several books written by people who have looked into this, and one is written, I'm sure you know Dr. Jerome Corsi, and he's certainly a very reliable Harvard-trained person, writes for WorldNet Daily, and he's written a book on Hitler's escape. There's another one called The Great Wolf, another one written by a fellow named Shark, who writes The Shark Hunters, and basically Adolf Hitler escaped. Now, if that is true, then it means that almost everything we have been told by the media through the years is a lie, and as you and I both know, it is a lie. And until we can get the American people to understand we've been lied to, and we are being lied to, nothing's going to change. But if we're going to turn this thing around, we're going to have to get people informed, and then they're going to have to get involved. And one of the biggest problems is, Alex, is that the average individual, well, he may vote or he may not vote, and he's going to tell other people, but people have to start getting involved in the local political system, in their communities. We're going to have to take America back from the bottom up, because there's control from the top down. And basically the other side's working every day. Our people don't even want to spend one night a week involved. I mean, I would say to every one of your listeners, you've got to get started today, putting it at least one day a week in the political process locally, supporting the local politicians who are honest, get rid of the local politicians who are bad, contribute your money, help get the information out, start talking and get them involved in the political process and simply change our entire local structure. We need to change our boards of supervisors, our city councils, our school boards, and we need to start taking America back. And if we don't do it, we're going to lose by default. And
well, undoubtedly, if it wasn't for you and so many others that came before you in the last 52 years that you've been fighting, they would have already gotten their program through. But in their globalist own words, they admit they're trying to create an artificial, synthetic reality for us,
right,
encapsulated where everything's basically like Times Square with their disinformation, overthrowing reality so they can sell us on all of the unnatural things they want to do. They want to play God. And when you find out that all the major things we've been told are a lie, and then you look at how anti-human the controllers are, you come to the realization that they are occultist. And I know in your book, bestseller, Brotherhood of Darkness, that WorldNet Daily and others helped put out, that you break this down. All these different cults, all these different groups, Skull and Bones, the Illuminati, you name it, they're all really satellites of the same fellow traveler system. Doctor, can you speak to the Brotherhood of Darkness and what their goal is?
well, basically, how do you make any sense out of what's going on? People will always tell you the enemy is communism. And no, we finance communism since its inception. The enemy is fascism and the Nazis. And basically, this is all lies. How do you understand what's going on? How do you understand the series of wars we had, the First World War, the Second World War, and the coming Third World War? Well, you could only understand this when you understand that there is another force there. The people on the right think that the left control what's going on. The people on the left think that the people on the right control it, and they're both wrong. There is this other group, and I call them the Brotherhood of Darkness, but they are made up basically of people of great wealth who are deeply involved in the occult, and they actually rely on supernatural occurrences. They actually have supernatural power. These people have wealth beyond comprehension to the average individual. And we're talking about people like the Rothschilds. We're talking about people like the Rockefellers, the Whitneys, and the dozens of people that Professor Quigley names in his book, A Tragedy and Hope, A History of the World in Our Time.
Stay there, Dr. Stan Monteith. Stay there, my friend. We'll come back and talk about the top of the pyramid, who the Brotherhood of Darkness are, and what their goals are.
This is Leanne McAdoo for InfoWarsLife.com. I'm here with Dr. Edward Group, master herbologist and chief formulator behind the InfoWars Life products. Dr. Group, what have you been hearing from women who've started taking Super Female Vitality?
We've heard the reviews and feedback from Super Male Vitality, from emails to even excited callers on the radio. Now, the answer for women is here. A new formulation specifically designed for the female body, Super Female Vitality, delivers 10 key herbs that work synergistically to revitalize the unique biology of women.
I'm so glad that you guys made this for women. When he brought me home the bottle of Super Female, I had tons of energy, tons of motivation, a lot of drive. My husband thinks I've been in a better mood. Our relationship, all I can say is it's a lot better now.
I've just started taking Super Female Vitality from InfoWarsLife.com. Supplies are limited, so secure yours today at InfoWarsLife.com, InfoWarsStore.com, or dial 1-888-253-3139.
You can look it up. 36,000 high-level Nazis in every field of science and politics were brought here and put in charge of the entire bureaucracy in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. Anyone who's a graduate student of that age will tell you they were taught by a Nazi in probably half of the departments. It wasn't just NASA. It wasn't just economics. The CIA had Klaus Barbie and all of them brought in top Nazis. I mean, my grandfather used to be a lease hound for oil companies out in West Texas, New Mexico, and the Nazis would live on the bases, and they'd be at the bars, the only place to get a chicken fried steak. And some of the guys, sometimes the Germans would get smart mouthed about, oh, we would have kicked your ass, blah, 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 and there'd be fist fights and things. And I remember him just barely mentioning people getting in fights with him and stuff when I was a little kid, and you hear your grandpa talking about this kind of stuff, and you don't believe it. Just sounds crazy. And now they've brought in all these other globalists. They brought in the former East Germans to set up Homeland Security. And it just shows how evil the people are that are running things. So Dr. Stan Monteith was bringing that up. You were getting into the Brotherhood of Darkness, though. It's all about betrayal, and it's always about betraying the last group they funded for the next group. It's full spectrum dominance. It's control both sides of the chessboard. That way you own the board itself, and the public's always opting into the construct you've given them. But at the top of the pyramid, Dr. Stan Monteith, icon of the Awakening Liberty movement, what is at the top of the pyramid? What is their end-game goal if they succeed?
Well, basically, what is so difficult for most people to believe is that there really is a supernatural component to life. I mean, we live, we were born, and just go through life, and we die. But of course, there is certainly much more to life than simply that. There really is a God. There really are supernatural forces, and once certainly you have a personal relationship with our Lord, or you'll see Him interfering and certainly interjecting Him into your life almost on a daily basis. It's almost impossible to believe, but I'm sure that you and other people who are Christians see that influence of God.
No, I've experienced so much providence, and then I feel ashamed that I'm given this many chances and this much providence. I mean, is that what it feels like for you?
Amen to that. But God is guiding us, and there's a small number of us who are out there on the front lines of this battle, being protected and getting the word out. And I'm just hoping and praying that more and more people will turn to God and get involved in this. We're not going to be able to defeat these wicked people on our own, but with God's help we can. We're involved in a spiritual battle that's being fought on a political, ideological, and cultural battlefield, but it is really a spiritual battle, and we need God's help, and God will help us if we ask for it, but unfortunately, America as a nation has rejected God. We are a post-Christian nation, and I really fear that God is going to bring His judgment on this nation. I think that's the biggest thing that we have to look forward to now. In fact, there's one thing that Thomas Jefferson said I will never forget it. God, who gave us life, gave us liberty. But can the liberty of a nation be secure when the conviction has been forgotten that liberty is the gift of God? I tremble for my country when I reflect that God is just, and His justice will not sleep forever. And I really fear God is going to bring His judgment on this country unless there is a massive revival. I don't see it coming, but my job is to do what I do.
Hundreds of thousands being taken captive, massive executions in horror as the Saudi Arabian funded al-Qaeda forces. Drudge has it from the Daily Mail. It's just unbelievable. Engage in the executions of Christians in mass graves. This is just incredible. This is just amazing. We're going to cover all that coming up in the next segment. Dr. Stan Monteith, what I was saying before we went to break is evil's moving on every front right now. I can see that the hammer's dropping. I mean, A, do you concur with that? Do you feel it in your spirit? And where do you see everything going?
I think that we are in real trouble. I think America has turned against God, and I believe God is going to bring His judgment unless, as I mentioned earlier, we have a massive revival. I don't see it coming, but my job, your job, the small group of people in alternative radio are having an impact. And I will tell you, the other side is worried. In fact, I saw this notation the other day. There was some sort of an article in one of the magazines criticizing these crazy people as there's a conspiracy. But it said that almost 23% of the population really believes there is a conspiracy. Well, I think that's pretty good. And I think we're making progress, Alex. All we can do is keep pushing, but also pointing at this is not simply an ideological battle, it's a spiritual battle, and try to get people to begin looking to our Lord for salvation and basically for strength, because that's where our strength is going to come from. And if we're going to turn this thing around, it's going to be with God's help, not simply on our own effort.
I'm showing images of the al-Qaeda troops that have taken over the ISIS forces, and they are just showing the mass graves, the mass executions. There's even gruesome video of it. I don't know if we're going to show that, but I mean, this is just wholesale evil. Every Christian they find is killed. Every policeman they find is killed. This is who our government put in and is now funding the destruction of the very same moderates that were put in compared to these people. This is unspeakable evil that's being committed right now, and it just shows the plan they have for us here as well.
They're funding both sides. That's what most people must understand. We are funding the Shias, we're funding the Sunnis, and we should pull out of there completely, and we should demand immediately. In fact, I suddenly yesterday, for the first time, actually contacted my congressman and both my senators and said, pull out immediately, and I would suggest that we ask your listeners should they send an email immediately to their congressmen and both senators saying pull out. If there was enough of certainly a support across America, we could bring pressure on Obama and he would begin to back down.
Sure. Here's my issue, and I want to have you back up soon and talk about it. I was against going there both times because it was a setup.
Right.
And I know you were as well. The problem is Saudi Arabia and NATO are behind this ISIS takeover. You've got highways for 20 miles full of the al-Qaeda forces. They could highway of death them and destroy them. But Obama acts like he's just fumbling around doing nothing. Don't we have a responsibility if we toppled the government to not let al-Qaeda take over?
I think that this is a civil war. You just pull everything out, get out of there completely, and let them solve it on their own. There's going to be a bloodbath no matter what happens. But we should not be back there.
No. I agree with you, but that was, back in 1990. Don't let them, do this or let them have a civil war. Now, what I'm saying is the globalists are the ones. This is the same al-Qaeda group they had attacking Syria. Now they've gone into Iraq. Dr. Stan Monteith, we're all praying for you, brother. Get better, and I want to have you back up soon. Godspeed at Radio Liberty. We all owe you a debt.
You are watching the best of the Alex Jones Show, weekdays from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central. Watch live at Infowars.com/show or become a member of InfoWarsNews.com and help us take resistance to the next level.